This is episode 35, the indirect object. Now I mentioned in video 29 that there are two types of objects, the direct object and the indirect object. Now we have spent some time looking at the direct object, so we're going to turn our attention now to the indirect object. The indirect object typically refers to the person or being that is the recipient of an action. Let's take the following sentence. We gave our father a shirt. So let's break this sentence down into its different parts. We know from previous videos that we is the subject. Gave is our verb in the past tense. And what are we giving? Well, we're giving a shirt. So a shirt is the direct object. Our father here is the person to whom we are giving the shirt. So in this sentence, they are the recipient of the shirt, and therefore he is the indirect object. In this simple sentence, it is clear from context that the father is receiving the shirt. It is unlikely that we are giving a shirt a father. But even if it's not clear from context, word order, as is usual in English, plays a significant role in meaning making. So the indirect object comes before the object. So let's consider the following two sentences. She found the family a dog, and she found the dog a family. Now, if we break down our sentences, we have she is the subject for both, and found is the verb for both. But if we look at the order here, in this sentence, the dog is what she found, and she found it to give to the family. So therefore the dog is the direct object, and the family is the indirect object. However, in this sentence, the poor dog was left without a home. And so, what did she find? She found a family. Who did she find the family for? The dog. So therefore, a family is the direct object, and the dog is the indirect object. And we can see from this consistent word order here that that's what we would expect to find, that the direct object comes after the indirect object. Unless, of course, we find that the indirect object is part of a prepositional phrase. So let's have a look at that. So we have these two sentences. He sold me the wrong screwdriver. And finally, he sold the wrong screwdriver to me. Now in this instance, what did he sell? He is the subject. Sold is the verb. What did he sell? He sold the wrong screwdriver, so that's the direct object. Who did he sell the wrong screwdriver to? Well, he sold it to me. Okay, now in this particular sentence, we can have a look at that again. Who was doing the selling? He was. What was he doing? He was selling, or he sold. What was he selling? He was selling the wrong screwdriver. In this sentence, we've removed me from in between the verb and the direct object, and we've put it right at the end after to me. But it's still actually fulfilling the role of the indirect object. Okay, so when the direct object is a pronoun, we always put the indirect object as a prepositional phrase after the direct object, because it just sounds a little bit weird otherwise. If we didn't, we would be he told us it. So in this instance, he is the subject. Told is the verb. What is he telling? He's telling it. That's the direct object. Who is he telling it to? Well, he's telling it to us. But if we say it in the word form, he told us it, well, that just sounds a little bit wrong. You will hear small children saying that, but that's just because of their stages of learning. It's not how we say it once we've become a master of the English language. Instead, we say it like this. We say subject, he. What did he do? Told it, between being the direct object, to us. Okay, so whenever the direct object is a pronoun like this, then to us, or the indirect object, is always going to come after and not before. Okay, so we need to take a look at another example here, just to remind us of one more thing. And here it is here. She told the old man a story. Let's label that, she being the subject, tell being the verb. What is she telling? A story. Who is she telling it to? The old man. And then we have the old man as the indirect object and a story as the direct object. In the next sentence, she told the old man's story. Now in this instance there is no indirect object because this apostrophe S is turning the old man's story into one long noun phrase. And that noun phrase is, of course, the direct object, because you cannot have an indirect object without a direct object, but you can have a direct object without an indirect object. So that is the direct object. What is she telling? Well, she's telling the old man's story. So therefore, if a person directly after the verb has an apostrophe S for the possessive, it is not the indirect object, but rather part of the direct object. There's a lot of things that we've learned about the indirect object there, so let's write a small list of the things that we know about it here, just to bring it all together. Now firstly, the indirect object can be a noun, but not in the possessive form, a pronoun or a preposition. So let's write that down first. We don't actually come across indirect objects all the time. They need a specific verb. And these are verbs such as give, lend, offer, pass, post, read, sell, send, show, promise, and tell. So I'm just going to write that down very briefly, not all of them, but some of them. Now these verbs all take an indirect object and use to in their prepositional phrase. There are some verbs that take an indirect object and use for in their prepositional phrase, such as she found a family for the dog. And these verbs include verbs like book, buy, get, cook, keep, bring, make, pour, save, and find. So we'll write a couple more of those here. You'll notice here that I've placed a small little arrow up to the to for bring, because you can bring something for someone, you can also bring something to someone. So that can be either, and some of them can be either. But that's pretty much all I have to say about the indirect object. There's only one more function to cover after this one, and that is the adverbial. And the adverbial is the part of the sentence that gives us all our optional extras. So it's a pretty important part of the sentence. I look forward to doing that with you, but until then, thanks for watching The Language Code.